Hey, you crazy cats. Welcome to Leaving CrazyTown, where we navigate the roller coaster of relationships, mental health, and personal transformation with humor as our trusty seatbelt.
Hi, I'm Sarah, and with my buddy Finn, we're here to share our real stories, expert insights, practical tips to help you break free from codependency, reclaim your life, and find freedom.
So whether you're wrestling with boundary issues, craving connections that won't ghost you, or just here for a front row seat to the wild ride of self-discovery, you've come to the right place.
So buckle up. We're leaving CrazyTown. Welcome to Leaving CrazyTown. My name is Dr. Sarah Michaud, and we are here with the famous Andrea Ashley. I am so excited. She is from the Adult Children podcast. Many of you know about it. We've talked about it. My friend Susan told me to tell you to say hi. She sends all her clients to you. We love your pod and we love you. And we're so great. And the other thing I want to say is your freaking Instagram is so hilarious. I don't have TikTok, so I don't know what your other channel is.
I stopped TikTok. It's too overwhelming. It's too overwhelming.
It's so, but the Instagram, for anybody that has Instagram, go to Adult Child and Andrea Ashley. It is hilarious. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. I don't know
And you
about
look
famous,
beautiful.
but thank you. Social media is a pain in the butt. So
Yes, right. Yeah, we haven't really even gone down that road yet because I have such resistance to it, but you've done great.
I've gotten to a place where I've stopped overthink. That's not true. I don't overthink as much as I used to. And
Yes.
But it can be overwhelming for sure.
I bet it can be overwhelming. I mean, do you know Glennon Doyle? She talks about recovering from social media. I guess she had a really bad addiction to it. So I think it can cause a lot of problems.
I think it has caused a lot of
It has
problems.
caused a lot.
I think that's a lot of what's wrong with this world.
Oh my gosh, we could go down that so easily. All right, so I have a bunch of questions and answer whatever you want. Don't answer whatever you want. So, of course, the first question is, what made you start a podcast? What was going on in your life when you decided, okay, this would be a great, brilliant idea?
Oh gosh.
I know.
Man, I can't believe it. It was 4 years in April. So
Not long.
and it seems like forever ago. You know, when I hit my adult child bottom, part of the realization was that I had never really considered what a fulfilling career would look like. All I had ever, and feel free to interrupt me at any point, all I cared about was finding a guy and getting married.
I get it.
Pretty much.
Believe me.
I was a CPA at the time.
Yep.
And so part of embarking on this healing journey was also to figure out what the hell am I supposed to be doing here, you know?
Right.
And so that was in 2018. And it was just this several year journey of figuring out what really makes me me.
Yes.
And going down lots of various paths that went nowhere. At one point, I thought that I wanted to get into sports in some capacity. What it all boils down to is all of my interactions with strangers is really what it boils down to. And so,
okay, tell me more about that. What do you mean by that?
I mean, I talk to everybody and everyone, and I love that. Yeah. But this is when I was living in San Francisco. So it was I had lots of opportunities to interact with people, whether that's, and I'll tell you a few stories, but whether that's in an Uber. I've taken Uber drivers to AA meetings with me on the bus, and I'll tell you one of my favorite stories. Or I'm somebody that I used to love to just, and even completely sober, I love going into sports bars by myself. I just walk in and I pick my target.
Now, are you talking about trying to meet a guy and hook up?
No.
You're just talking about wanting to meet strangers.
Yeah.
Okay. I love this.
Yeah.
You are so delightful. And my analysis is working hard. Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, I mean, and I love watching sports, and I didn't really have any close friends out there that that were into a sports as much as me. So go into a sports bar, figure out who I'm going to target. And then I always start off with some sort of line that's as if I've known you forever. You know what I mean? It's never hi, I'm Andrea. It's some sort of weird comment that's as if I know you. And then it either goes like really good or really bad, right? Like I'm either like they either are like a big fan or I like totally weird them out. But I just kept having all these really profound experiences where I would open up about myself and it was like so perfectly clear why the universe brought us together, crystal clear. And a lot of the times it was like me opening up about like the adult child stuff. And so that just like kept happening to me over and over and over again. But I'll tell you one of my favorite stories. And I think this just like sums up my personality beautifully. So one day I was on the way home from work. I was on the bus. It was like a super crowded bus. I'm sitting next to this Black gentleman. He's probably like in his 50s and he was wearing like a neon construction vest and he was on his phone and I could see that he was on a dating app because I looked. And so I can see that he's like messaging with a woman and she had asked him like, so like, how would you describe yourself? And he's like sitting there like thinking of what to say. And so I'm like pretty sure like nobody else in the whole world would do this. I turn to him and I go, I'm sorry, I can't help myself. What are you going to say? And he goes, I'm going to tell her the truth. And he goes, and this is the truth too. And he scrolls up to the message that he had sent her right before she had asked him that. And he had said, before we go any further, I just want to let you know that in July of 2017, I got out of prison after serving 28 years. And so the first thing I say to him is like, is she a robot? Because she like made no reference to that bomb that he had just dropped. Like she literally just responded by saying like, how do you describe yourself as a person? And then I said to him, I said, and again, probably nobody would ask this. I go, do you mind me asking, like, was it for murder? And he went into his story and, his mom was an addict. His dad was in prison. When he was 14, he dropped out of school and joined a gang. And when he was 19, he was convicted of a double homicide. He wasn't the one who pulled the trigger, but he was the one that had orchestrated it. And he was initially sentenced to the death penalty. And several years into his sentence, that was overturned. And he said that he knew his life was saved for a reason. And he got his GED. He became like a certified addiction counselor and he served 28 years before he was released. And then it finally like got to my stop and he got off the bus with me. And then that's when he told me that his stop had been like several stops before, but he was enjoying talking to me so much. And so his name was Marvin and like I gave him a hug and we became Facebook friends and we stayed in contact for a while. I haven't heard from him in a while. Yeah, I just remember walking home and my whole body was just like buzzing with energy, just these
from the
divinely
conversation
inspired like interactions, just these powerful experiences and putting myself out there. And so there was a period of time where I was like, I want to do something. Like I bought the domain name Talks to Strangers. But
gosh,
then,
that could have gotten you in trouble. I don't know, in a variety of ways.
And there was a period of time where I was like, do I want to get into the like addiction field in some capacity? And so my therapist was really wonderful and she would like connect me with different people that she knew. And so there was a guy that she had connected me with who had a sober living place and he did like sober coaching and sober transportation. And he called me up randomly one day and was like, I just dropped this girl off at detox and she wants to do sober coaching, but she wants to do it more from like an adult child perspective. And so I wanted to know if like you're interested in doing that. And so I would drive up to this. If I ever relapse, like I'm going to this detox.
Okay.
It was like so amazing. It was like this beautiful house up in Marin with like a pool and like the most amazing chef. And they had like goats in the backyard. Like it was just like amazing. And I would just sit at the pool and we would read the Big Red Book together. And I just had this, I remember driving home one day and I was driving over the Golden Gate Bridge. And I just remember like the idea came to me, like, you should do a podcast. Like you should do a podcast. And I was afraid that I wasn't going to actually follow through on it because I had started all these like creative projects over those years and just shit the bed on all of them, like never followed through on any of them. And so I ended up like finding some people that were like writers, creative coaches that worked in LA. And I initially started working with them because I was just like, all right, I'm going to do 8 to 10 episodes. We'll just see how this goes. And then it was like after a couple weeks of working with them and me just like redoing everything that they were doing, I was like, you know what? I can actually do this on my own.
You can do, yeah.
And so then that was it. So then I just like worked on it myself. I had no idea what I was doing. I just recorded it on the floor of my basement next to my cat's
Right.
litter box, and
Right.
it blew up pretty fast.
Yes. Well, I mean, so many people are adult child. Like we talk about in the red book, the red book talks about it. I was going to ask you about the big red book. The big red book, for those who don't know, is called Adult Children of Alcoholics. And it's a great textbook. And I remember the first time I ever went to an ACOA meeting and reading out of the book. Oh my God, I get choked up talking about it. Like I remember just thinking, oh my God, like this is what I've been looking for.
When was that?
I don't know, maybe 15 years ago, 20 years ago. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, after kind of getting into Al-Anon and doing some of that. And then, I mean, it's just been this progression. And that's one of the things I was going to talk to you about is, you know, it seems like a lot of people who get sober end up eventually, if they're really on this journey in Al-Anon or ACOA or some other kind of program or other programs just dealing with other issues. And how did you know, because you were sober a little while, how did you know suddenly, like, had you gone to an ACOE meeting? Did you read a book like Codependent No More? Or when did you realize, oh, some of these things are really ACOA issues? Like what, or was it the two Brian story? I mean, I was going to ask you about that, but yeah. So go ahead.
Yeah. So it was a guy ghosts me after dating a month. I'm 7 years sober. And my reaction was as if like my husband of 30 years had just tragically died in a plane crash, you know?
Yes.
And this wasn't a
Love
new,
you.
it wasn't a new reaction. It was like pretty
Right.
much the reaction that I had in every like relationship. It was the first time that I had the realization that there's no way that the way that I'm feeling right now could actually be about this person. Like I've known them for less than a month and they clearly have a drinking problem.
Yeah.
And so the
Right.
second aha was this is a feeling that I felt often as a little girl. And that was the first time that I made the connection. And then it was a couple months later, I went to an AA meeting, and the speaker, who had over 30 years, she was sharing about how when she had 7 years sober, that she had hit emotional bottom as a result of a relationship in which she came to terms with the true impact that her childhood had on her.
Yes.
And she mentioned the book, like Adult Children
Yes.
of Alcoholics. And I had heard about it. I had
Yes.
heard the term before from my therapist, like years before, but I don't know
Right.
why I never thought like maybe that's a
Right.
thing for me or anything. So I go home and I read the book and like my mind is absolutely blown. Like
Yes.
I couldn't believe it. I mean, the text
Yes.
is phenomenal. That book is
Yes.
amazing. And it was like the
Yes.
first time I was seeing, like reading all of the things that I had felt,
Yes.
thought, and did, and thought that I was, you know, the only one.
Yes.
And I went up to her the next week at the end of the meeting and I was like, thank you so much for everything that you shared. And I told her a little bit about what was going on. And she just looked at me and she goes, Andrea, that's great. But I just want you to know that just reading this book is not going to be enough, that this is going to take you years and years and years of therapy. You have to treat this as seriously as your alcoholism. And I just remember thinking, years? I don't have years, lady. Like, I really don't have years. Like, I have a
Right.
couple of months at best. I really
Right.
just hope that her childhood was like a whole lot more screwed up than mine was. And so I was like, you know what? Like, I'll just take a year off from dating. I've read this book.
Yep.
And surely that will be good enough. And no,
Yes.
year and a half later, enter Brian number 2.
Yeah.
You know, the trauma piece of that, while I made the connection that I was an adult child, the fact that this was like trauma, that this was like complex PTSD that I was suffering from, that hadn't settled. Like I didn't realize the gravity of truly what it was that I was dealing with.
Yes. That was my next question, actually, because you talk a lot about complex PTSD on your show. You've had tons of guests that specialize in complex PTSD. And so how would you describe that transition and even the symptomology of going from like, geez, I have these ACOA issues. You know, I'm reading the red book. I'm going to some meetings. I'm talking to some people about how my relationships are being affected, to transitioning into, wow, now I'm seeing it's CP, you know, it's complex PTSD. Like what was that transition? And also, can you tell folks like what would be the distinction of this? Is it just the severity of symptoms? Is it different symptoms? Like, how would you describe it?
I think that it's what it boils down to, like, for everybody. I think that this is what we're
Yes.
dealing with here, you
Yes.
know?
Yes.
And I continue to be truly humbled by it all, you know?
Yeah.
I thought that I was a whole hell of a lot more healed
Yes.
than I was when I started this podcast.
Yes.
You know, like, I thought that I was so much further along. And while I had the realization that this was complex PTSD, I had done just mostly neck up healing,
Yes.
you know? And so I continue to be just truly humbled by it all. And I think that that's what addiction is too. I think this is what everybody has. And I do think that there are varying degrees of severity of it. I think
Yeah.
some people can go their whole lives. I was just talking to, I think I was asking Tim Fletcher about this. I think some people can go their whole lives where it like doesn't ever get painful enough to where they're forced to have to
Yes.
confront it. And unfortunately, and fortunately for me, I wasn't one of those people. Like, it was really, really painful that I had to do something about it. But
Right.
where do I begin? Complex trauma, just for people that don't know, we think about like big T trauma, you know, getting sexually abused, being in war, you know, stuff like that, getting beat up. And then little T trauma is just these repetitive things that happen in your childhood that might not seem like a big deal, but I would say are even a bigger deal than the big T stuff, because it's happening to you at a point in time where your nervous system and your sense of self is being cultivated and developed, and you have no idea, you know, that
Right.
this is what is happening to you.
Right. And no language, because it may be small. I mean, not small stuff, but you may get in a car accident. Your father may slap you on the ass, or I'm just thinking of different things that like you think, oh, I feel weird about her. I feel something, but oh, it's not a trauma. So it's so easy to minimize these things over time. Go ahead.
Or just even little like critical remarks that your
Critical
parents make to
remarks.
you.
Absolutely.
You know, just
Criticism.
really
Yes.
little things like that.
Anything. Yes. Go ahead. Sorry.
And it impacts, and there's so many varying factors that like
Yes.
go into it all too. So it's like two people could have the same exact experience and be impacted in completely different ways.
Yes.
And then there's so many other things too that can counter it as well. Like, I don't know if you're familiar with, there's like pieces, which is the like positive childhood experiences. So
Got it.
you could have like other things happen too that kind of help balance it out. And that was one thing that was confusing to me, because your mood being dictated by that other person. And so it's like when you think that things are going well, you're at a 10. And when you don't think that things are going well, like
Right.
you're at 0, and you're just like 0 to 10, 0 to 10,
Right.
like no stops in between. Hypervigilance, you
Yeah.
know, it's like constantly being on guard, like waiting for the next shoe to drop, reading into text messages, facial expressions, how long it takes for them to get back to you, all of those things, just
All those
constantly
things.
being on guard for
Yes.
being abandoned. And then the biggest thing, this is the hallmark symptom of complex PTSD, are emotional flashbacks,
Right.
you know, where something happens and you are, you know, transported back in time to some sort of unresolved experience from your childhood.
Yes.
And you feel the exact same way that you felt at that time, but you have no
Yes.
idea that's what's going on. You think that what's happening has everything to do with the present. And I can just speak to like why that is. You know, when you experience trauma, like as a kid, your the rational part of your brain that shuts down and the emotional part of your brain revs up. And so basically what happens is you're taking in all these pieces of information, but then the rational part of the brain is not doing its job of then taking those pieces of information and putting them into like a clear, cohesive memory and storing that
Yes.
into your brain. You have to have like an adult or somebody help you make sense of what happened. Like once you calm down, you have to have somebody sit down with you and help you make sense of what it is that you experienced in order for
Right.
your brain to like form that clear memory. And so
Right.
when something happens that, you know, is reminiscent of whatever it is that you experienced,
Yes.
you know, that's getting triggered.
Yeah.
But since you haven't put it together, there's no visual, it's a flashback, but there's no visual component to it. So you
Yes.
don't know that.
You feel crazy.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so that's the whole,
Yes.
like, if it's hysterical, it's historical.
Yes.
So
Yes.
anytime that happens, anytime you have like a reaction that seems out of proportion to the situation at hand,
Yes.
I mean, that's your biggest clue right there that there's something unresolved.
Right. I mean, so much of it is language. I mean, I have a whole chapter in my book about anger, and I say, 99.9% of the time you get angry, it's not about the present moment. And, it's great that this complex PTSD, to me, put language on things that you hear in all kinds of groups, whether it's ACOA or Al Anon or whatever. But you made me think of so many different things. That was a great description. And a lot of those kind of examples of how it manifests. And I agree. I mean, so much of our unresolved childhood stuff, it all manifests when we're in relationships, because that's when it gets activated, right?
In parenting.
It doesn't get activated in other scenarios for some reason. But I've been in an intimate relationship for the last year of my life, and I hadn't been in one for, I don't know, maybe 10 years. And I'm telling you, and I've said this to clients for years, the first 3 months of any new relationship, you don't even see the person. It's like I was activated constantly. I had those feelings that you're describing, like, I thought I'd resolved all this. But the thing is, those issues don't come up unless you're trying to be in an intimate relationship, or some of them
100%.
don't. So it's been, being in a relationship has just been for me lately the biggest exercise in learning more about myself, because more opportunities. And you just said some great things, though, when you were talking about everybody has different childhoods and the same thing could happen to two different people in different manifestations. And it reminded me of studies around, and I can't remember the name of it exactly, but like when they take someone who grows up in a really horrendous childhood, but doesn't have somebody like a teacher or someone that cares about them, they end up maybe institutionalized, while someone else who had one person just be a safe person for them ends up doing all right. And so there's something also about, do you have, and then it reminds me of the somatic experiencing when I've done training and those weekends. They talk about a safe container. Even in the workshops they create with people standing behind you when you're going through your own process, just like an individual therapy thing, there's something about having that safe container of a human being just being present, where then you can access a lot of that stuff. And so, yeah, if you don't have that, it's really hard to feel safe enough to work through any of that stuff. A lot of great stuff. I mean, and yes, the symptoms of abandonment or activation or whatever it is, working with someone who, like your therapist, someone who's skilled in it. And I know you've talked about on the podcast, also I've listened to the somatic experiencing people. And when you said I was way more in my head than my body, like that is the therapy when I eventually got into more body stuff, really helped me to access things that I hadn't accessed in talk therapy for years. So go ahead.
I mean, I went into like about a 18-month, I guess it was like April of 2023. Like I just had a series of events that just like totally like triggered all of my abandonment trauma. I mean, it was just like one thing after the next, after the next, after the next. And I just went into like an 18-month period of, I didn't realize at the time was like functional freeze. Like I didn't realize that that's what was going on. It really like living in absolute survival mode and being able to get the bare bones done, like the basics done, but not being able to really like move forward in any other capacity, and just like phone addiction and just like I did a series of videos on like the various phases of like functional freeze, and the one that I have is like what did I call it? Like the shame-filled like procrastinator, like overthinker. Like my breed is like, just procrastination, like self-sabotage to the max,
Got it.
overthinking things,
Yes.
And then just every day at the end of the day, just being like getting a punch to the gut of just
Oh,
intense shame that yet again, I didn't get all the things done that I wanted to, get done for the day, and just
ooh, I mean,
realizing how much of how much of the work that I just hadn't done. Yeah, I understood everything, but I hadn't done any of the somatic work.
right. So that's a great point, though. You can understand it intellectually, which is brilliant. And yet there is something about really internalizing it and allowing for the feelings to come through. And I remember I listened to your podcast where you talked about, I'm going to take a break and we're going to come back and do, Adult Pod 2.0, I think you called it. And so that was a real, it's also great for people to hear that. And even on my own thing, when I talk about things that I'm going through, I think it's really great to hear that, hey, we all hit certain walls with things and it's time to do some work. So it sounds like that was a time where it was like the perfect storm of, I don't know if it was a relationship ending or someone or some loss or what triggered it, but that it was time for you to take a break and do your own work. And so did it take a while, like you saw the functional freeze? And I appreciate you explaining to people what that is, but it took a while to either get out of yourself to get more help with it, or the phone addiction, it sounds like was a way it was masking the other stuff, or you were coping with it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a way to just numb out,
Yeah,
right?
distract. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I started working with an IFS therapist and it's almost been a year. I just had like a real turn around in January where I felt like I was finally, that's when I announced that I was like taking a break in December. And then I felt like I was like, I'm going to just like take a month off. And then I like started to feel a little bit better. And then I just had like another meltdown. And then I
Yes.
got the flu, and it was
Oh my
almost like it was almost like this like final purge in a
yes.
way. And I was so sick. And then I came out of that and I don't know what shifted, but
Yes.
I started doing breath work every morning and I was able to start like implementing like little routines. Like I was able to
Yes.
start having a morning routine. And then it was like, I don't know what happened. I just came out of that flu and I was actually able to start like functioning again and being productive and starting to tackle items off my to-do list that I like had on my to-do list for like I don't know 2 years.
Wow. Got it.
But you know what also like I think probably helped too is I started doing this IFS work, but because I don't know if I ever truly dissociate. Like mine is like a hyper vigilant form of dissociation. Like
Okay.
I'm like on my phone listening to something intense, like I'm constantly stimulated, like
Stimulated.
yeah, overboard.
Yes. Okay. Got it.
And so it was hard for me to actually start connecting with my parts because it was really difficult for me
Yes.
to get my brain to shut down. And so I wasn't having the sort of experiences that I was hearing, people and everyone in my community, like we're like IFS nuts. Like I just think it's one
Yes.
of the most effective forms
Yes.
of therapy. And
Yes.
so I really just was not having the type of profound experiences that other people were having that I was hearing them.
Yes.
I decided that, and I talked with both of my therapists about it. I talked to my psychiatrist about it, and I decided that I wanted to try using ketamine in the process.
Got it. And
And
so
so,
tell us about that.
yeah,
During the IFS
yeah,
session.
in the actual session, right?
Okay, got
So,
it.
yeah. So
Tell us.
it's just like sublingual. And so, yeah, I just like take it a couple minutes before. And it's not like it's not like I was like super messed up, but
Right.
it really helps in getting some of those protectors to stand down. And
Stand down.
so I did that and I was like finally able to start connecting with my parts in some pretty profound ways. And so
Got it.
I did that. I started doing that in December. And so I did maybe like 4 or 5 sessions with the ketamine. And then as a result of that, I'm now able to connect with my parts, and, the process is a lot easier for me. So I don't use it anymore. I just kind of
Got it.
did it to kind of
It
help
helped.
open up the door.
It helped to access.
And so that was like in December and January was when I had those sessions. And then at the end of January is when I got sick and then came out of that. So I think that was like a really, really helpful. And I think IFS has just been, and I've been so blessed just to always have such wonderful therapists. But
Yes.
I think for me, I think that we understand why we do certain things. Like we understand that these are defense mechanisms and coping skills, and we try to make sense. Or I thought I understood maybe like why I was doing certain things, but I think the reality is that a lot of these behaviors are rooted in such young parts of ourselves
Right.
that
Right.
it doesn't really consciously make sense, and so it's maybe
Right.
not something that comes to mind. And so, yeah. And so IFS has been just really powerful
Yes.
and helpful.
It's so funny you're talking about IFS, and that was one of my questions because I just ended up doing this book review. I don't know. Do you know Emma McAdam from Therapy in a Nutshell? It's a great YouTube channel. Definitely check it out. I'll send you a link. She's huge, and she talks a lot about complex PTSD and anxiety and depression, really all about commitment and acceptance therapy. But she's really smart, but she has a lot of it is tools. Just so she asked me.
Oh, I think I might know who she is. Is she like a little quirky?
She's kind of quirky. She has wavy hair. And
yeah, I know who she is.
She just has solution. She's very solution focused. And so I did a show with her on codependency. And then anyways, long story short, we're going to do some book reviews. So I just read Dick Schwartz's book on internal family systems like a few months ago and did some of the exercises and then did this whole, write up about it. And for people who don't know, I mean, in general, he talks about there are no bad parts. That was the book. And there are these main 3 parts: exiles, which are basically kind of these frozen children.
Wounded inner children.
Inner children, exactly. And then firefighters who come and kind of, come in when there's a wave of emotion. So it might be an addiction. It might be something to come in and kind of fight against the exile who's starting to feel too much. And then these protectors who kind of are intermediaries and managers. But it is an incredible therapy. And what Andrea was just saying is that with the ketamine, it was harder, it sounds like, for you to access those exiles. And the ketamine helped to kind of clear that pathway. Because the exiles, to me, and again, there's different language for the same things, but this wounded part of you that is holding all the pain and the emotion, it's really hard to just kind of access that out of the blue unless something's triggered it or unless something's happening presently in your life where you can start. I mean, he gives some exercises, but it's funny. I was just interviewing a friend of mine to describe this process, and she said, which may be hard also, is it takes a while when you're in a session. She said, I may be sitting there for a while before I can really get to it. So you have to have a lot of kind of patience with yourself and also be able to sit there with yourself, right, for a while to let that come up. Sounds like it was a
and the first part that always comes in for me at the beginning of every session is like, I have a part that's like, you can't do this. Like, we're not going to be able to connect to anything. Like, you can't do this. This works for other people, but this won't work for you,
Got it. It sounds like there's this huge perfectionism piece of your personality. Like when you talk about the lists and all this stuff, but then shame that it doesn't get done. And so these standards, I remember my old analyst used to say, where did you get these standards of behavior that you internalized? I mean, do you connect to that or not?
Yeah, I wouldn't even consider myself to be a perfect. I mean, when I talk about these lists, this is the big thing with IFS, and it's all about like compassion.
Yes.
And I think that this is where I think a lot of 12-step recovery, like especially in like AA, I just feel like we're just like flogging ourselves, right? I think that the real healing comes from, it's all about just like acceptance and compassion. I think that that's where like the biggest shift in my healing have been is just like, showing myself massive amounts of grace. And like,
Yes.
I have to, like yesterday, it's like I had a day where I was like utterly useless. Like I just didn't get anything done. And so it's like being able to have those days and not shame the shit out of myself,
Oh,
But yeah. And so it was really more so just like not being able, I really wish that I was the adult child breed that was like the overfunctioner and the
overfunction. I
perfectioner.
know.
Like that
Right.
really does sound like a much more,
Right. Right.
if I had to go one of the two, I'm the opposite. Like I'm the self-sabotager, procrastinator.
Got it.
But I
Got
really
it.
wish I was like the overfunctioner. So like I don't relate to that part. I'm
Yes.
holding myself to these like unrealistic standards and
Yes.
like going up and beyond. Like I was really
Got it.
just not able to function and not being able to like live up to what my potential
Right.
was, more
Yeah.
so.
Which is a
Man, I'd
great.
like to be the perfectionist.
Oh,
I'd love
I
to be.
get it. I know it's like people that over exercise. I'm always like, God, I wish
Yeah.
I was that person.
Yeah.
You
No
know, I
kidding.
mean, or that cares about cleanliness and home. That's
Yeah.
like,
I want to be the workaholic.
goals.
I'd
I
like,
love it.
I mean, that'd be better for my bank account,
No,
right?
I would love that. Right. And which is a great point you're bringing up, though. I mean, it's often with certain diagnoses, also like depression. There are different presentations of these things. You
Mhm.
could be an ACOA with a bunch of certain personality traits, and you could have grown up in a similar home, but have a bunch of other, traits. You could be a people pleaser, or you could be a rage machine. I mean, you could be, there's a
Well,
lot of different options, or you could be both.
and I
Yeah.
think a large part of it for me was like that I was like the scapegoat and the identified patient.
Got it. Yes.
Like that's the role that I played. And I've just realized, so
Yes.
much of how me, thinking that I need to play small and, still need my parents' help and how much of that is like rooted in younger parts thinking that that's
Yes.
keeping my parents safe. And that's been the whole other like part of this journey is just, like the continued demise of my parents and my family.
Got it.
It's just the alcoholism continues to progress and things have just continued to get more toxic and more abusive like as things have progressed. And then that's like a whole another added layer. And I posted something on Instagram about this, about like there's a unique kind of grief that comes from when you grow up in a family that maybe was like not as bad, but then to lose that like over time.
Yes.
And so it's like you're not only like grieving and processing like what happened to you as a kid, but you're also like grieving what you once had but no longer have,
Yes. Yes.
So
Absolutely.
it's been really rough and horrible. And I've realized that me sort of intellectualizing and understanding that my parents are sick and suffering and understanding that they're just a result of their own unresolved trauma and being able to name things and the behavior almost in a way is like prevents me from fully feeling
Yes.
it,
Yes.
but it's been like
Yes.
really, really cruel and like really
Oh,
abusive.
I'm so
So,
sorry. You know what? I was going to ask you about that. And I'm so sorry about
yeah,
that, because
it's
I
really
know
horrible.
when you were in San Francisco, I know you mentioned your family was in Florida. And then when
Yeah.
I heard you moved back to Florida, I was thinking to myself, I wonder if she's seeing her family. And I wasn't sure if both parents were alcoholics or if it was just your
Yeah,
mom.
they both are.
And okay,
Yeah.
I was
Now they
trying
are.
to
Yeah.
remember that. Now they are. And
Yeah.
that progression, it's like with different siblings. My brothers had different experiences. With my mother was the alcoholic and my dad was the rager, co-crazy, but they had different experiences than I did, depending on the progression of her alcoholism and what was going on at any given time. So it
Yeah.
sounds like going back there, do you see them more often? Have you been setting different boundaries? What's been the progression of the relationship?
I mean, it's just once I started working on these issues,
Yeah.
there was like a real shift there. And that's normal. And that's what happens, right? Like
Yes.
when somebody names the
Yes.
dysfunction, and it's not even like I'm throwing them under the bus or, trying to shit on them. And when I first started the podcast, when my mom found out that I was doing the podcast, things were like things have really just the past 10 years, things have really gone downhill, but especially like in the past few years, like it's just
got
really,
it.
really,
Okay.
really bad. But
Okay.
when I first started, the podcast, my mom was like, "Well, can you leave us out of it?"
It's
And
kind of in the name,
yeah.
but right.
And I was like, "Listen, I've thought about this a lot, I
Yep.
said I am going to talk about it, but I make sure that I say that a loving family and a dysfunctional family are not mutually exclusive."
Yes.
And that I know that it didn't start with you. Like you're just a
Yes.
product of your own upbringing. And so when I first started the podcast, it was like, I'm going to talk about what happened to me as a kid, but I'm not going to talk about like present day stuff because I didn't want it to seem like I was throwing them under the bus. But then as things like continued to progress and things got worse and worse, I've slowly started to open up, about it more. Because
Yes.
when you listen to my first podcast episode, second podcast where I talk about my childhood, I mean, you could take away like thinking, oh, my mom probably got sober and she's still sober now. You wouldn't necessarily
Right.
know like what the story was, but
Yes.
I talk about it more now. I'm more open about it now. And you know what? And they obviously don't listen because they can't listen because it's too much. And they're
It's too
proud
much.
of me, like I know that they're proud of me in the way that they can be, but I can't imagine the massive amount of shame like that. And I have compassion for them for that. Like,
Yes.
I can't imagine the massive amount of shame that they must have, like to have and I'm an only child too, to have
Oh,
their
God.
daughter be doing what she's doing,
Yes.
to be a voice for this cause.
Yes.
And it's not like anybody's in denial here. You know what I mean? It's not like we all know what the deal is. We all know what's going on here. Like, that's the part that also made the whole experience so interesting is like, I found out that my mom was an alcoholic when I was 7. Like, we've never been in denial about like what's going on. We just like never really got to any real solutions. We're just kind of
Is
like in
she
denial about solutions.
is she like an admitted alcoholic? Has she ever tried to get sober or gone to
Yeah, she
treatment?
has. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I
She's
wasn't
gone to
sure.
treatment
Okay.
many times. And,
Yeah.
I think a large part of it is like it's the codependency of the relationship.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like they keep each other sick.
Yes.
And it's like if somebody tries to climb out of the well a little bit, the other person grabs
Oh,
their leg and pulls them back down.
yes.
And so I just won't have it, I just
Right. Right.
and so the way that I describe it is like I don't ignore the elephant in the room. I'll acknowledge the elephant. I just don't try to carry the elephant out of the room anymore. But like anytime I acknowledge the elephant, like it totally gets, they still try to put me in that scapegoat
Oh, got it.
that I'm the
Oh,
problem role,
got it.
It's like, and it happens, over and over again. And I'm just like,
Right.
I'm not having it, but
are
it's
you?
horrible. It's hard.
course
I
it's
feel like
well,
an
it's
orphan, especially over the past year or two. It's also escalated to a point where like, and I know that it's not about me, but there's not even like an interest in me in my life. And so it's really horrible. It's
I
really
know.
sad. It's really painful. It's really
Yes.
lonely. It's
Yes.
really effed up.
Because you're saying over the last 2 years, they've pulled away and you've gotten more and more alienated because you're the
Yeah, and
bad
they're so
person.
nasty,
Like they actually treat you poorly, not
Oh
just a
yeah.
boy.
They'll lash out like when things happen. Yeah. And then they'll come back around and like it'll be kind of like like a half-ass apology, but it's like I'm not going to keep continuing to put myself in.
That's the trouble.
Yeah.
Right. Right. Oh, it reminds me of that quote in that famous Boundaries book by Cloud and Townsend. I don't know if you ever, they're like these Christian psychiatrists. And they said, oh my God, I'm not going to remember it, but about setting the boundary that the reasons why it's so hard to finally do it is because once you do, you have to tolerate all the grief around the loss really of that relationship. If they're not capable of agreeing with the boundary and respecting your boundaries, then it's also looking at the past and grieving the past and the things you never got and the things you tolerated before. So yeah, it's really hard when the truth is kind of confronting us and it's like where to go, what kind of
Well,
relationship, do I talk to them at all, do I not, do I just set boundaries, am I respected, is it still the same, getting on the roller coaster, as this woman at a meeting the other day said, yeah, I kept getting on the roller coaster with my husband, but then I just kept vomiting.
And
Go
then
ahead.
there's also like shame too, because, the way that money has always been like a really big theme too. It was like
Yeah.
alcohol and money. And so the way that my, self-sabotage and trauma and being the identified patient and being the
Yes.
scapegoat, has kept me like financially tied to them. So then there's like
Got
this shame of I've put myself, and I know that
Wow.
I know that like, yes, I have a partner and I'm not saying like I'm some
Yes.
helpless thing, but
Yes.
like it's this whole sick system of like where I've been like entrapped in it
Yes.
and continued to put myself in a position of being hurt. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And so it's
Yes.
so complicated and sick and toxic and
Got it.
complex and all of the things. So,
Yes.
but I think
Yeah.
there's a lot there that I'm not going to be able to grieve until they're gone.
Right. We have a lot of similarities. My family, it was the money too. My dad, I give examples around. My mother was the alcoholic, and I had the kind of emotionally incestuous thing with dad. And he would call me and ask me to have lunch with him. And at the time I was in college, you're reminding me of it. And he was supporting me. And I would say, God, I really can't. And then he would say, do you want your check? And it was this implication like, oh, and I finally, after recovery for years, would say, okay, Dad, are you saying that if I don't have lunch with you, you're not going to pay for me this month? Is that? And then he would just laugh. And then it would be, oh, don't be, I'm just joking. Meanwhile, so I get those really dysfunctional dynamics and how to set the boundaries when you're being supported. It's really tricky.
I just had I had an incident with them a couple months ago, and it ended with my dad saying, "No, I'm done with you. Like I'm never talking to you again."
Wow.
And which he does, like, this is he does
Yeah,
this.
of
And
course.
it's like dealing with a 6-year-old. And so a couple days later, I had to take my car in to get fixed. And actually that was like really it was so annoying and frustrating because I just made like a really stupid mistake of pulling too far into a parking space, and my car sits like super, super low. And I
Oh,
just jacked up the
oh
bottom of
yeah.
the car like
Yeah.
$3,000 unnecessarily. But it was
Yes.
really great because like it was like the first time that I had never called my parents to tell them about it and ask for their help, so it's like I
Yes.
taking care of it all of myself. So the next day, like when I go to pick up my car, I walk in and the guy goes, well, today's like not as bad as you thought it was going to be. And then he tells me that my dad had been in the day before to drop his car off, and he was like, he paid for half of it.
Wow.
But that was like a day, it was like 2 days after he said, like, I'm done to you.
I'm
I'm
done
never
with you.
talking to you ever again. I'm like, this is so sick.
That's such a great example, though, of the mixed messages and the push pull. And I will get angry at you, but now
It's
it's like
financial abuse.
financial abuse. And it's also it reminds you of domestic violence. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? That when they say the final thing, but then like that next day, it's all the apologizes and they, giving you this and giving you that. And why that makes it so painful and hard and shameful. Because then you're like, oh, okay. And then the shame arrives because you a day before had all this clarity. It really makes things muddy. So
Yeah,
yeah.
and so it's like I had to, there was like this strong part of me that felt like I needed to reach out and thank him, and I didn't. Like, I
Yeah.
didn't, because that's just me playing into it more. I'm pretty numb to it most of the time, to be
Right.
completely honest, and that's
Right.
okay. It's just the way that it has to be. It's harder with my mom because she was like my best friend, like for a while.
Oh,
Like, we were so close, and yeah, there's just like a real like lack of interest in having any sort of relationship. And I know that it has to do with just, I mean, her alcoholism is really far progressed. And as a mom, like I know that there has to
oh,
be just massive shame for her, but that's the part that's really hard.
absolutely. Especially if you are really, really close, that loss of
Yeah.
that relationship and then watching her decline. And it's hard when they're in it, they're in that sick relationship and you feel like, my God, I'm the kid. I'm supposed to be, where's the, yeah, yes,
I'm trying to heal from my childhood, and I'm still
yes.
like very much in it in various ways too.
Yes, you're absolutely right, though. And this is going to sound awful, but my parents are deceased. And I remember when my mom died when I was in my 30s from alcoholism. And right after we're all standing around the bed, I said, thank God, like
Mm.
literally, because I was so relieved that I didn't have to deal with that anymore. And it was
Yeah.
not that I didn't have a journey in my own therapy and in meetings, etc., but just not to have to deal with it and be able to grieve without then being hooked again. So there is
Mhm.
something that I'm not, you know what I'm saying? I'm
I know
just saying,
exactly what you're saying.
just
Yeah.
make it easy.
100%.
I often say to people, I have a better relationship with my mother now because I
Mm.
literally, after I had a child, I can feel her presence at different times than when she was alive. So I get it. It's
Yeah.
when, and especially if they're aging or they're in alcoholism or declining, it's hard. So it sounds like it's still evolving, and I send you
Yeah, it's not like I've written them like,
Yeah.
it's like I'm
Nope.
never talking to you ever again.
Nope.
It's like a day-to-day thing. And what I'll
Yes.
say is like I worked really hard to figure out how to have boundaries in place,
Yes.
to have a relationship with them in the ways that I can.
Yes.
Unfortunately, like when the other when they're going in the opposite direction, it makes things really hard.
Yes.
There's
Yes.
only so much I can do.
Absolutely.
I was on a date the other day and somebody was like, well, have you ever just thought of like just accepting them for who they are? I'm like, yeah, I've done that. But like, if they're like toxic and abusive, I'm not fucking putting up with that.
Well, you can accept them, and then if something happens the very next day, I mean,
Exactly.
it's a lot of work. I would say this about my dad constantly. The problem, he was relentless. So yeah, I could heal one day, and then 2 days later, he does something. So it is very hard to navigate that journey.
Well,
Absolutely.
it's like my dad. That's his greatest line is like, can't you just like learn to accept us for who we are? Like, yeah, I can, but that doesn't mean that you get to like lash out at me when I
Yeah.
call you out on your shit.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. All right. So transitioning now, though, dating. This was going to be part. Okay.
Nothing to report.
Give me the update. Anybody,
Nothing exciting. No.
nothing exciting in the last.
No. I'm noticing a shift though in a couple of situations, like in the past couple of weeks. And I'm noticing that I don't need the crumbs or
Yes.
the attention or I'm just noticing there definitely is a shift.
It's so funny because that was like that was one of my last questions. It was going to be, how do you see yourself different when you're dating now, or some of the issues that have changed over time in like a relationship today? So that is where you see the progress, I think.
Yeah, and I'll just like full disclosure, like
Please.
So I had this date with this guy and it was so wonderful. Like it was such a great date. And this guy was like, he had been in therapy for like 7 years. And it wasn't like I want to jump your bones, like kind of chemistry. It felt like a healthy, like sort of, chemistry. And so like we made plans like for like our second date, like after the first date. And he was like a good bit older than me though. Like he was 11 or 12 years older than me. And and so like, I hear from him, like he texts me the next day, then I don't hear from him the following day, which is, I'm like, you know what, that's like, it's fine. I've been on one date with this person, like, they have a life, and then the next day was Monday and we were supposed to go out on Tuesday. And so then I finally just like shot a text at the end of the day and was just like, are we still on for tomorrow? And so then he finally responds to me. And at that point, I just had a feeling that something was off.
Felt odd.
Just like, I just had an intuition.
Okay.
And so basically like he shot a text back and was like, yeah, after spending all weekend with my kids, mind you, they're like grown. It's not like he has like little kids. He was like, after spending all weekend with my kids, I realized that we're just in completely different places in our lives, and basically saying there's no point in us in like going out. And so this really just felt like such a punch to the gut because it was like the first time that I like had a really good date in quite a while. And so I was in the Target parking lot or changing room, and without even thinking about it, like the thing that I initially sent back to him, this just being completely honest, the thing that I just sent immediately back to him was along the lines of like, okay, that's fine, but if you still want to mess around, let me know. And after I sent that, I felt like I don't want to have to wait around to see if he responds back to me. Like I just so I blocked his number because I didn't want to have to know like if and when, he would respond to me. And so I blocked his number, and I didn't beat myself up over it. I didn't shame myself over it. I did it. It's fine, whatever.
Yes.
And so then I ended up like unblocking his number a couple days later. And so I have no idea like if he like initially responded to those messages or not, but he ended up like texting me and asking me about like, what was the name of your podcast again or whatever. So I just like sent him a link to my podcast. And then he like sent something back and was basically along the lines of like, I've thought about what you said and basically saying like, I'd be down to like to take you up on it. And so I wrote back and
Wow.
I said, I had a chance to rethink my text too. And I realized that you're a damn fool for not wanting to take me out on another date.
Man.
That felt so good because even a couple years ago, I would have just
Spiraled?
taken it. No, I would have taken it.
Oh,
I would
you
have
would have
run
just
with
taken
it.
it. Okay.
I would have told myself, oh, you can do this. There won't be any consequences. I think the biggest thing is not that I didn't do it, that I didn't take him up on it, is that I wasn't even interested. Like I actually was no longer attracted to him. Like
Yes.
after he didn't want to take me out on another date, like I realized that there's something going on here. Like we've been on one date. We had an amazing date. It's not about we're not in the same place. And like, there's something weird going on here. Like the connection was too real. You're getting freaked out and you're running away. Like this isn't about like, we're in different places in our lives. Like that doesn't make sense. And so then he like, sent me like some more texts and I didn't respond. And then he like said he had listened to 2 of my episodes and he had sent some other things. He was trying to fish like for some sort of attention or response.
God.
And then I just wrote back and I just said, make sure to give me a 5-star review. And then that felt so good. It was even almost better than silence because it was like, you're just a fan. You're just a fan now. Like you're just a listener, you bozo, And so then he texted and then he kept texting. And then I was completely silent, like ghosted him. And so that felt great. Like it felt like a completely like full circle moment. But that was like where I could see just huge growth. And like, I had my feelings. I felt really disappointed and sad about it. There still is a part that feels like, what the hell is wrong with you? Like, there's clearly something wrong with you. This person won't even take you out on a second date. Like, there's still those parts that, are there and are going to be there. But he bounced back fast. And when he came back around, because they always freaking do, I didn't take the bait. And then I get to come out like on top and I get to be the one that like rejects you now, So that felt really great.
That is such a win. I'm very happy for you. You know what it reminds me of? You probably don't know this guy, but Dave Barry, he wrote a bunch of humorous books. He wrote a column and he wrote this book that is hilarious. I should send it to you. It's like the guidebook to guys and it's pretty funny. But one of the parts in that book, he says, if you're a woman and you had the experience of going out with a guy and you had this extraordinary time with him and it felt like, oh my God, this is the greatest thing in the world. And they don't call you back. He gives this whole list of reasons why. And it's hilarious. It's like they think they're giving up future hot tubs with supermodels. That'll never happen. Like, it's like this total delusional thinking that you're right. They have this experience and suddenly the terror comes in. And so I think it's great that you went through that and you got to the other side.
Yeah, it was good.
Awesome. Yes. And of course, eventually I want you to totally have a great relationship and I'm sure it'll happen.
I hope, I feel like, when is it going to be? That's the other part that comes through is like,
Got it.
When is it going to be my turn?
Yes.
Like,
I get it.
So I just keep trusting that like God just has something really because it's like, I know I'm amazing. Like I'm an amazing catch, but it feels like, all right, come on. Like I've had enough of these bozos.
I get it. Oh my God. You are so delightful. And just to wrap up, I'm going to say, when can people, are you coming back with the
hopefully in a couple, probably in a month or two. So
in a month or two. All right.
Yeah. I mean, I still do my Saturday episodes every week. So I still do my shit show Saturday episodes. I just haven't been doing
episodes. Okay. Yeah. Anything you want to promote or say about
I'll just say that we're doing I just announced it yesterday. So there's a woman that's in my shit show community who is a certified breathwork and somatic practitioner. And we just did a course. It's called Breathe to Heal. We just did it. It was a 6-week course. And so it went amazing, phenomenally well. And it's like housed within the shit show community. And I think what made it an even like more powerful experience is like, you just get to show up like as yourself. This isn't some like stuffy course with some like stuffy practitioner. Like this is where everybody just shows up as their real authentic self. You don't have to be the perfect student. If you don't do any breath work in between like courses, that's fine. Like whatever. And so we just announced we're going to do it again, but this time it's going to be more inner child focused. So it's called Breathe to Heal, a journey to somatically reclaim your inner child. It combines parts work, breath work, and somatic practices. It's 6 weeks. It's on Zoom. You can go to adultchildpodcast.com/breathe to heal. And yeah, so that's that.
Awesome. Excellent. I'm sure all your followers, fans, everybody can't wait to have you come back. If you haven't heard
Yes, I will definitely have you back on.
adultchildpodcast.com, and her Instagram is unbelievable. She's a delightful human being and she's so real.
I'm a real one.
Love her. And thank you so much for being
Sarah.
here. Thanks for listening to Leaving CrazyTown. We hope today's episode offered you valuable insights and tools to help navigate your relationship.
If you found our discussion helpful, please rate, review, and subscribe to our podcast. And share it with a friend. Misery loves company, right?
Stay connected with us on social media and visit our website for additional resources and updates on future episodes.
Until next time, remember that breaking free from codependency is a journey, and we're here to help you every step of the way. And hey, if all else fails, at least you'll have a few left.
So buckle up. We're leaving CrazyTown.